Hey everyone, it's All-Star Ethan here. So I've been asked about my controller settings a couple of times, and I thought the best way to show it is basically with a video anyway, because it's not just a normal sensitivity I play on. I actually changed recently to the advanced look controls instead, so there's a little bit more to it, so I thought I'd basically just go through them so that you can see. First of all though, I actually play on a controller that's got the sort of trigger locks on it as well as the back paddles as well. So I've got those assigned to jump and crouch at the moment, obviously, so that I can still aim whilst jumping and crouching. But other than that, let's go into the actual settings themselves. So if we go into controller here, you can see the first one I've got is actually the menu cursor speed. I have that pretty high, maybe a little bit too high. Some people might have seen in some of my videos I tend to sometimes overshoot things a little bit with the cursor. However, I do have some videos as well where I've got some really quick armor swaps in there in, just a fraction of a second, and that's because this speed is so high, basically. So looking onto the actual sensitivities here, now I used to, before I put the advanced look controls on, I used to play on, I think, 5 on my look and 4 on the aim down sights sensitivity. Now that actually allowed me to, I was practicing a lot with the recoils, and I was hitting lots of shots at long range to mid range. My recoil was very good on those as well, and basically it was going really well, but I did find that I was having some trouble when enemies got really up in my face and close to my grill. And I'm actually somebody you'll also see as well if you've watched lots of my videos, is I don't hip fire very often. I'm not really used to it. It's not very natural to me. I aim down sights a lot more, and I was finding with those sensitivities, when somebody was really close to me and basically I was trying to aim down sights on them because I don't hip fire enough, I need to definitely work on that. I was finding that I couldn't actually track them very well, and they were easily getting around me and strafing, and I couldn't actually keep up with them in a way. So I went onto somebody's video, and I can't remember whose it was, but I was looking through lots of different controller settings, and I was trying to find one that matched my playstyle a little bit more. Now, when I used to play Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare, I used to play on the highest sensitivity. I used to play on 10, which was insane. And I looked at this layout, and this is kind of the same kind of way. I can play on a high sensitivity, so I chose to do it that way, and I thought it's going to help me in this close quarter combats, which it really, really has. I have noticed that I've been a lot better in those close range fights. However, I have also noticed that I've not been quite as good at hitting my longer range shots. However, I have only been using this for a couple of weeks, so I'm hoping that over time, with a little bit more practice, I'll have the best of both worlds. I'll be able to absolutely wreck in close quarters, but then also hopefully be able to hit those longer range shots as well and keep that recoil down a little bit. Just takes a little bit of adjustment with those micro muscles and everything like that. So either way, if you actually go onto the advanced look controls here, you can see obviously I've got them turned on. My dead zone is actually pretty low, so it's under the usual bar there. So this is because basically I don't need much of a dead zone on my controller stick input there whatsoever, and you can see the outer threshold as well, really, really low, and the response curve is actually bang on the line where it says to have it on there. I think these lines actually change depending on whether you got it on insane or super high, etc. So if you do want to just check and make sure that you are on these settings first. But like I say, this is for people that can work on a high sensitivity. That is very key to this setup at the moment as well. Now, one of the things that I did actually find the most interesting was the per Optic Settings. I'm really glad that they added this into the game, actually. I think it's very important. I had to mess around with these quite a bit, and I was messing around with them for ages, and then I realized that actually it's better just to straight up turn them off. Because I found that I was tweaking them a little bit too much, and it was completely throwing me off indeed. It was working a little bit because I changed the 2 times so that the sensitivity was a little bit higher, so that I could actually use the 2 times sight as a close range sight as well, and then I ended up throwing off some of the sniper sights and things. I think if you want to mess around with it, it takes a bit of work and you could get it really defined to yourself, but me personally, I'm not going to mess around with that just yet. What we have changed though is, as you can see, the yaw and the pitch speed. Now, the yaw speed is obviously how quickly you turn left or right. Now, that's the one which you want to be able to turn really quickly for that kind of things, because that is being able to quickly snap onto people. So that one is actually really quite high up there as well, so that you can turn fast. You could have a little bit higher than this, a little bit lower. I believe that I've done mine a little bit on the lower side just because I've been getting used to it. I might actually change that up a little bit at some point. Now, the pitch speed though, you're going to want that a little bit lower. Now that's mainly because you don't need to be as quick looking, from down to up into the air suddenly. Once you're used to first person shooters, you're often going to be aiming at around head height on people anyway when you go through doorways and things like that. That's something you should have learned by now, or it's one of the basics more than anything. So that one doesn't actually need to be as high as the yaw speed, but it still needs to be a little bit higher than that regular normal bar on there. So you can see there we've got it a little bit lower. And that's mainly, it's actually going to help you a little bit with recoil control and things as well. I think if I had that too high, I think it would be very hard. I think I would be a little bit too twitchy, and I think it would be difficult to track people that are maybe running up hills or jumping into roofs and things like that. You can see here that basically turning extra yaw, so this is all the way up at the maximum on this. So it says here, this is when the stick input is at its maximum, how much more quickly the view turns left or right, allows for quicker turnarounds without sacrificing fine control. So this is basically when you're tracking somebody, obviously you don't use your stick all the way to its definitive point, to its maximum. You're only going to be sort of like brushing it slightly. Now what happens is if you need to really quickly turn around, you can just push that stick all the way to the left, and it's going to increase that sensitivity even more when it knows that you're pushing it right to its maximum. So it allows for those even quicker turnarounds. If somebody's shooting you from behind, and this is one of the reasons why close quarter combat has been easier for me since, is because if I'm shooting at one guy and suddenly I'm getting shot from the other direction, I can turn around and snap onto them so much quicker than I ever used to be. So this is really, really important. All of these though, you definitely don't need these. These are all being put at the minimum. You don't need to look up extra quickly. There's no point in that one, so that one's just at its minimum thing. The turning ramp up time as well, I think as long as you've got your sticks and your controller aren't too worn out, this should be its minimum. This is the kind of thing where if you need a little delay in there, if your sticks are a little bit dodgy and you need a delay or some ramp up time in there, then you're going to want to mess around with these a little bit. But if your controller's in good condition, you should be able to have these at its minimum, and that should be absolutely fine. You want it to be very responsive. If you end up putting too much on this, or any at all, in fact, you'll find your controller a little bit unresponsive, and it's just those little microseconds that can make a difference. Now, all of these settings are basically the same thing, but for aim down sights, so I will leave this on here a little bit just so that you can see them in daily, but obviously the aim down sights, yaw, and pitch speed are nowhere near as high, actually, and the pitch speed is actually pretty much the same as it is on here as well. They are nearly identical. The reason for that is because when you're aiming down sights, you need that regularity with it so that you can actually look up and down just as fast as each other. However, obviously when you're aiming down sights, you don't want to be able to look left and right quite as quickly as you would be when you're running around. The reason why it's so high on here is because you want to be able to use it for your movement. Basically, you want to be able to really quickly turn around, and then obviously the aim down sight speed there as well. Looking left and right, that you need to still be able to track people a little bit. If this was too high, it would be a lot harder to be able to track people whatsoever. I found that this actually works in the case where it's just sensitive enough to be able to basically you snap on people when you're not aiming down sights, when this is really quick on the sensitivity, and then when you are aiming down sights, it's not as quick, and you're able to actually keep your sight on them a little bit. So again here, the extra yaw on that one, but then all of these are absolutely at their minimum there. So the final things here as well is target compensation. So this is influences look input when aiming at targets. So this is aim assist, basically. Keep this on. I'll say if you are playing on console, keep aim assist on. I have messed around with it a little bit. You can be a lot more precise, I guess, with it off, but seriously, it is a very good thing. You'll notice in the recent competition, if you do watch any competitive Apex in the recent tournament, there are some players now that are basically hybriding between mouse and keyboard and controller. They're using mouse and keyboard to move around and loot. However, then when they get into a close quarter combat, they'll then use controller because of the aim assist. That's how important it is. So keep both of those on. But other than that, that is what I'm running at the moment. So overall, if you're looking for a bit of a new style and you want to try this out, it is pretty good. But it is, like I say, you need to be used to be able to using high sensitivities, and as I say, that's what I used to use back in the day when I used to play some of the older Call of Duties. I used to play on that insane thing and used to twitch around. I don't think my reactions are quite as good as they used to be when I was that age, but I think I can still handle this a little bit. I'm personally probably going to tweak these a little bit. I think this is the one at the moment where I'm like, you know what, I could probably speed up my aim down sight yaw speed slightly, and I might actually turn down the pitch speed on this one, mainly because I think that I'm fine tracking people when they're running horizontally, but I feel like I feel like the recoil control, I think I'm better at that at a lower value on the up and down, because you'll notice with most guns the recoil is obviously it goes up a lot more than it goes left to right. Probably flatline excluded on that, because the flatline is crazy horizontal recoil. So you need to be able to have a firm control of the vertical recoil instead. So I might actually turn down my pitch speed at some point and increase the yaw speed on there. But for now, I'm going to get used to this. Like I say, it's only been a couple of weeks anyway. So I hope that was helpful. Hope you get to see what it's like anyway. And yeah, absolutely try it out. But obviously, bear in mind, it's going to take a little while to get used to this kind of thing. And also looking at this, obviously movement dead zone small and inverted look. I don't play on inverted, but all credit to anybody that does. I just could not handle that myself whatsoever. But yeah, that is it completely. So I hope you enjoyed it anyway, and I hope you find it useful. Feel free to give it a go, and let me know in the comments if you did give it a go and how you got on. Other than that, I'll see you next time. Cheers.